Speculation Thursday here on Mackie and Judd. And we love bringing in our friend every single Thursday for a scoop session. You can also find Darren Doogie Wolfson in podcast form on the Scoop Podcast, Apple, Spotify, SKORNorth.com, and the SKOR North app. Bonus scoop with Judd and Dex on Tuesdays. And as part of the 5 Eyewitness News sports team, he is providing inside information about your favorite local sports teams. Doogie, happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Happy birthday, Phil Mackey.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations on reaching, I don't know if you want it out there, Phil, whatever number you are in your mid-30s. Congratulations. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
I am solidly in the back half of my mid-30s now. I am 36 as of today.
I completely forgot.
Judd, I don't think you and I have ever remembered each other's birthdays.
Happy birthday, Phil.
I appreciate it. No, Judd.
Well, I mean, it's what happens when we get to, in your case, Phil, 36. I'm 41. Yeah. I mean, outside of Facebook. I mean, Phil, that's the reason, right? I was on Facebook this morning. I saw your beautiful wife, your better half, give you a birthday shout out. Otherwise, Phil, I would have had no bleeping idea today was your birthday.
I completely forgot. Yeah.
No, aren't you a May birthday? When's your birthday? October.
Who,
July
me or Judd?
Yeah. No, you.
No, you.
January 20th.
I was close. See, I was close there.
No, you were close, and that's okay. I don't take offense.
Close.
I don't expect anybody to remember my birthday.
I thought you were June birthday, Doogie. I'm sorry.
Scoops on birthday.
Anyway, happy birthday.
All right, so Doogie, I think since last time we talked, or maybe it was around, we didn't really get into this a whole lot, but it is now official. The Timberwolves have acknowledged, yes, Alex Rodriguez owns the Timberwolves, and Marc Lore, who's, I think, the more interesting central figure just from a money and a business standpoint. But what can you tell us? I know you've got a conversation you're going to post on the Scoop Podcast with Glen Taylor, but what are some of the details you're hearing? Is Glen going to stick around for like a 2-year transition period? How is this thing going to play out? When are A-Rod and Marc Lore going to talk publicly about this in a press conference? What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, Phil, I talked to Glen for a while on Monday. You're right. I will post that conversation next time I can get around to recording a Scoop Podcast. We talked for a while on mic, a little bit off mic. In terms of your last question there, I think after the league approves this transaction, so maybe later in the summer, I would expect Lore and A-Rod to do some sort of press conference at this point. I would imagine it would be in person compared to virtual. But yeah, that will take place at some point here in the foreseeable future. Glen told me, even before the league approves this transaction, which Glen said 0 hurdles. Like, Glen is positive. And Glen's on just about every imaginable, board, when it comes to the NBA and the owner's involvement. Like, he would know. Like, Glen didn't say, hey, this thing, 0 doubt that it's going to get approved without knowing what he was talking about. So, 0 doubt the Utah Jazz ownership change with the new guy from the Miller family. That was 6 to 8 weeks after they had, publicly announced it. So at some point here, Glen said there's some scheduled meetings. It's not like they have a special meeting to approve the transaction. It'll just be a regularly scheduled meeting at some point here, June or July. It'll get officially announced. But Glen told me he will bring both of them on board in some capacity even before then. Like, in the next couple weeks, they will start to have their fingerprints on the organization. But yeah, Glen is still going to be involved. So as of now, the plan is for A-Rod and Lore to take over as majority owners at the start of the 23-24 season. So we are talking just over 2 years from this moment. But Glen did say that could be fluid. He said
that's so dumb.
Yeah, because they're not cutting. I guess what I'm getting at, Phil, they're not cutting a $1.5 billion check right now, right? It's, for lack of a better way of saying it, it's a process to get to the exact number. So there will be an opportunity for them somewhere down the road to buy in even more in terms of their actual stake. But Glen is still going to be involved here for a while. Glen even told me, this wasn't the conversation on Monday, but it was when we talked on April 8th, that even when A-Rod and Lore are the majority owners, Glen is still going to retain, some sliver of ownership, whether that's 15%, 20%, 12%. It'll be somewhere in that ballpark. So Glen is still going to be involved, just not as the frontal voice, starting that 23-24 season. But it is possible that sometime before, October of 2023, that A-Rod and Lore, they jump up. They are the majority owners.
So, Dukes, how many changes are we going to then see because of the difference here with alterations, or I don't know, A-Rod and Lore's guys or people being brought in at times? Is this going to be the Glen Taylor show with the two mentors, like Karate Kid learning behind the scenes, basketball on, basketball off, or are these guys going to come in and influence things? And I guess that's a long way for me to get to KG and Garnett and the potential to get 21 in the rafters, which I'm sorry, I continue to find incredibly important. It would seem to me, as long as Glenn is the lead guy, that's not going to happen. How do you think this all sort of plays out with this seemingly sort of odd transition?
All right, well, multiple tentacles there. Let's go down the KG rabbit hole first. Glenn let it be known to me again on Monday that his people have tried myriad times to reach out to KG's people to let them know. They have connected with KG's people, not necessarily KG directly, but they have connected with KG's people to say, hey, whenever KG is ready, we are ready to put 21 up in the Target Center rafters. So it's on KG to say yes, but you're right, Judd. As long as Glenn is the majority owner, I don't foresee that happening. I can see a scenario. The ball hasn't gotten rolling on this, although A-Rod and Lore were at the Hall of Fame ceremony over the weekend at the Mohegan Sun Casino there in Connecticut. So they were there for KG's induction, but the ball hasn't gotten rolling yet on A-Rod, Lore connecting with KG, having actual dialogue about bringing him on board. But I can see that eventually happening. And it may be 4 or 5 years down the road. But I can see KG involved in some form or fashion once A-Rod and Lore are the majority owners. In terms of the next handful of months, the next year or so, somewhere in the middle, you think about Lore's, e-commerce background. I mean, they're going to utilize that brilliant mind in some capacity. A-Rod's celebrity status. Heck, one of A-Rod's really good friends is Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. That's just one example, but you think about the free agency class of a year from now. Not that Bradley Beal is signing with Minnesota, but I think in that speculation, in that sort of realm of possibilities, why not utilize A-Rod to help recruit players, right? I remember back in free agency last year, they had a video chat with Derek Jones Jr. They made Derek Jones Jr. an offer. He ultimately chose Portland instead, but he was really impressed by the Wolves, presentation. I can promise you, Alex Rodriguez is going to be a part of those types of presentations, those videos they send out to the players, right? So, however A-Rod can be involved in helping recruit guys, they're going to utilize A-Rod in that form. So they're going to be involved, but Glenn is going to protect his guys, right? Ethan Casson, Ryan Tanke, Gerson Rosas, those guys aren't losing their jobs anytime soon. So just to answer your question, Judd, somewhere in the middle.
On the KG thing, it's not going to get fixed until Glenn is gone. So if Glenn's going to be around for 2 more years, then KG isn't going to be saying yes to any sort of jersey retirement or any sort of ceremony. So whether it's a 2-year bridge or it winds up being shorter, I really think A-Rod and Marc Lore need to let's start planting some seeds to heal that relationship. It doesn't have to be an overnight process, but at some point, Flip Saunders and Kevin Garnett are really the only 2 figureheads in the history of this franchise that are on a level of I'm all due respect to Kevin Love and some of the other players that have come through here and coaches, but those are the 2 guys that matter. And Flip tragically passed away. So KG is the only living figurehead of the Timberwolves, and it's an alienated relationship. It should really be one of the first priorities that these 2 new owners put on their list, in my opinion, Doogie.
And they will, Phil. They absolutely will. Heck, I'll take it as far as Troy Hudson's idea when I connected with T-Hud last week for him to spin some KG stories on the latest Scoop podcast.
Shut him down.
Shut him down. He's still involved in music, by the way, but more of the Christian rock, rap variety, not necessarily the music he was producing, a decade plus ago. But his idea is not only the jersey and the rafters, but there needs to be a statue out front, right? We've got the Sid Hartman statue. There needs to be a Kevin Garnett statue. I wholeheartedly support Troy Hudson's idea on that. And Troy and Gary Trent Sr., both those guys still live in town. KG cited both those guys by name. He didn't cite many names, by the way, in his speech on Saturday, but he did specifically mention Gary Trent Sr. And Troy Hudson. So that tells you how close KG is with those two. Talking to both those guys last week, they're still in KG's ear. They understand the animosity where KG stands, but those two would love nothing more than for KG to be involved again with the Wolves. So I firmly believe it's when, not if, but the when still might be a few years out.
Where do you think stand these days, Doogs, with Byron Buxton's return, which is not going to save the Twin season, but at least he's fun to watch?
So we talked, I don't remember if it was the Tuesday podcast, this Thursday podcast, the Scoop podcast, or maybe it was just Twitter, but I certainly put it out there when the injury initially happened. I forget the exact date, Judd. Maybe you remember the exact date, but the buzz initially was that this was not a 12 to 16 week Luis Robert type, injury. That with the diagnosis, the grade 2, that was accurate. They weren't lying to us, hiding information. That this was always a 4 to 6 week type situation. So he may play for the St. Paul Saints as soon as this weekend. If it's not this weekend, that's still fluid. They were still figuring it out as of this morning when I texted with a high-ranking Twins official. But if it's not this weekend, it'll be really, really soon that Byron Buxton is playing rehab games. So once he starts playing rehab games, his return to the Twins lineup isn't that far off.
Doogie, we would love two things from you here. I'm gonna throw something at you, and I would love your answer in two lanes. There's the journalism 101 lane, and then there's the idea of this thing actually coming to fruition. So yesterday, John Morosi, who is a wonderful baseball insider, I've known him personally for 10 or 12 years. He's like, the dude went to Harvard. He's got a ton of relationships with front office people, owners. Like, he's on MLB Network. He's among the top 6 or 7 baseball insiders, and he's very good at his job.
He's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like more my relationship with him is DMing, following each other on social media, but I know he's super passionate also about hockey, so he's got, a certain interest in Minnesota, the state of hockey, the Wild. And so we've DM'd a handful of times. He doesn't just toss stuff out hoping it sticks up against the wall, put it that way.
That's my journalism 101 angle. So he tweeted out yesterday very specifically, Jose Berrios is one name to watch as a trade fit for the Blue Jays, as I mentioned on MLB Network. When a team has the worst record in the American League, as the Twins do, it's hard to say any players are off limits. So of course we tweeted that out and it created a firestorm yesterday, but someone found the video clip of him on MLB Network and he put it all on himself to like, hey, here's an idea that I have, right? Or whatever. I don't think he just put stuff out there. He's a professional. He's getting told information. And then sometimes what you do is you use your own opinion as a filter, right? So you don't hang a source out to dry or whatever, right? So your thoughts on that report, Doogie?
Well, my thoughts are, he was told something very specifically, but I would bet a lot of money that it did not come from anybody with the Twins.
Sure.
That the reason he volunteered the Toronto Blue Jays specifically was he got that information from somebody that works for the Blue Jays. So as you look at the Blue Jays, high expectations this year, lots of payroll flexibility, some decent prospects. They're playing well. The idea of the Blue Jays adding some starting pitcher over the next couple months via trade makes a ton of sense. That it's a safe bet. They are going to add some starting pitcher. As you look at the Twins, the worst team in baseball, the idea of the Twins being sellers makes a ton of logical sense. Now, Barrios is not a pending free agent. He's a free agent after the 22 season.
Yeah.
So if you're the Twins, are you more likely to trade guys like Hansel Robles, Jay Happ? Heck, does Alexander Colomé now have a little bit of trade value? I mean, look at the pending free agents. Andrelton Simmons, Nelson Cruz, who does not have any sort of trade protection. I think it does make more logical sense that you're going to trade those pending free agents before you look to trade a Buxton or a Berrios or somebody under control beyond this year. But is it out of the realm of possibilities that Falvey and Levine will at least listen? And if the offer is too good to be true, I think they would say yes. So, I can't sit here and tell you 0% chance Jose Berrios is not getting traded.
Yeah.
But would my money be on a Berrios trade at this point? No, I don't have any sense that talks have advanced to even the, to use the football cliche, the 50-yard line or the opposition's 40-yard line, let alone being at the opposition's 10-yard line or in the red zone, right? That I don't have a sense that talks have gotten off the ground. We also know this much, though, Phil, that the Twins have made not one, but Berrios multiple extension offers.
Yeah.
He has turned down each and every Twins offer. So how high are the Twins willing to go? Heck, what is Berrios' ceiling, right? I mean, is the ceiling a really good number 3, a decent number 2 at this point? Is he a number 1? I don't think so, right? But the word a couple years ago was his camp laughed at the Blake Snell extension, when he was in Tampa. Also the Aaron Nola extension with Philadelphia. So I don't think they're taking any sort of team discount. That he's young enough where, his agency, Wasserman, has no problem playing this thing out, letting Berrios hit the open market after the 22 season. Plus, there's all sorts of questions about what the heck is going to take place with these CBA negotiations. Heck, will there even be a 22 season? So that's another layer, right? That we talk about the Twins having control of Berrios through the 22 season. We don't even know at this point if for sure there is going to be a 22 season. That with the CBA expiring, Judd, is it November, December, sometime here before the calendar year is over, that those negotiations, the Players Association, ownership, that could be really, really interesting, right? With no guarantees that spring training starts in February of next year. The next season starts in late March, early April. So I'm just telling you, that adds another layer, not only to Barrios, but Buxton's also in that boat, right? Where he's a free agent after the 22 season. But I'm just telling you, based on some working knowledge and certainly some instinct, that I don't sense the Twins are remotely close to a Berrios or a Buxton, trade. That I would still look at the pending free agents more so.
Dude, what's your best guess? Do you think, because I don't think they're going to do both, would you guess that Berrios or Buxton gets an extension here? If one's going to stay, which one? I don't think both are staying.
Judd, they both have turned down multiple offers.
No, I know. That's why I'm asking.
So that's why it's really tough.
Who do you go with that final contract offer that they're like, okay, this is sufficient, because we've got to get away, or they're going to retain one of those two. They're going to have to get away from this. Hey, do a team friendly deal. It's going to help us to, okay, it's a time to pay you now, which I don't see them doing both for.
Well, but what you just described, is there a happy medium where the Twins get at least one team option? The Twins love multiple team options, but I think it would be hard to get Berrios or Buxton to sign a contract that contains multiple team options. But can you get one of them to sign a contract that contains one team option, but in the same breath, you're also paying that player fair market value, maybe even above fair market value? So I don't know if I have a specific answer to your question. It might just be, okay, of those two, which one is willing to accept that sort of offer? But I guess if you want the answer, why would I, skirt away from answering the question? I would say probably you would lean the pitcher, right? That how much pitching depth do they really have? That of the two, you figure you can fill an outfield spot, that you would pay the pitcher over the outfielder.
Yeah. Doogie, you just got done, before you came in studio here to talk with us, you just talked with Ben Johnson, new Gophers basketball head coach. All right, what's the situation there? They're sort of leaking transfers and injuries. Are they bringing anybody in to field a team for this upcoming season?
Phil, my gut tells me that we will have news. I'll give myself a little leeway here. I think we'll have some news on one player being added. Maybe it's not even next Thursday. Maybe it's shortly after Memorial Day. So maybe it's a couple weeks out, but it could be sooner than that. That put it this way, the roster for this upcoming season is incomplete. I see the Gophers adding at least 2 big men, potentially even 3. That I would not rule out 3 big men. And when I say big men, some guys that have some position flexibility, that they don't just solely guard the opposition 5-man, that they could guard a 4-man, maybe even a 3-man, depending on matchups. But yeah, they're going to add at least 2 more players in the coming weeks. You got to let the NBA pre-draft process play out a little bit. So one player could be maybe a month, 6-8 weeks out. But hey, guys can be on campus here starting in just a couple weeks as the calendar flips to June. Workouts can begin. Ben's going to get some court time with his team. Ben's going to be able to get out and recruit. Like, things are about to ramp up big time college basketball-wise as soon as June hits here. So Ben and the rest of his staff are fully prepared for that. Some big man names to remember. Certainly Steph Mitchell, the Shakopee native. He was a good player at Boston College. Not quite all ACC, but he was a good player in the ACC for multiple years. He is now in the portal. He's going through the pre-draft process, but can I see the Gophers landing Steph Mitchell? I can. That would be a really nice get. He would start. He would play 30-something minutes a night. Sterling Manley is a big man transfer from North Carolina. Hasn't played a ton for the Tar Heels, but the fact he was on the Tar Heels, played some, that would be a really good get. If you could get those 2, you would have a starting lineup of Peyton Willis at the 1. And when I say Peyton Willis, by the way, point guard, the way Ben Johnson's going to run his offense, we're not talking a traditional point guard. It's really just somebody to bring the ball up, make that initial pass, and get into their sets. That's the way Ben is going to play. Ben is not playing with a traditional point guard. It's by design. If you look at the Gophers roster right now, they don't have a player under 6'4". That's not just random. That's by design. So Ben is not playing with a traditional point guard. But when I'm talking about a starting 5, okay, Peyton Willis at the 1 because he'll guard the opposition 1. You've then got the William and Mary transfer, Luke Lowe, or E.J. Stevens, the Lafayette transfer, at the 2. You've got Jamison Battle at the 3. The George Washington transfer was a great player for D1 Minnesota, also at De La Salle High School, also played at Benilde St. Margaret's with the Judd Zolgad history there. So you'd have Battle at the 3. Then if you land Mitchell and Manley, there's your 4-man and 5-man. So in an ideal world, and I think for sure the Gophers are in a good spot to land at least one of those guys, but maybe they land both, where if you're running out a starting 5 of Willis, let's say Luke Lowe, Jamison Battle, you've got Steph Mitchell and Sterling Manley, you got a chance. They're going to surprise some people. I will say this much. My sense is, and talking to Ben certainly believes this, he's got a lot of guys that just get the game. Maybe it's a cliche, but the high basketball IQ. That guys aren't going to make stupid plays. You think about maybe specifically last year's team, some of the boneheaded decisions some of the Gophers made. Certainly Marcus Carr at times, but others. Ben feels like he's not going to have guys that make dumb decisions. Maybe on occasion, but for the most part, he's going to have some smart players. And he's going to have some length. They're going to be able to win some games on defense. Maybe they're not scoring at all times, but with the length they have on defense, that they're going to be able to stop some teams that way, maybe win some low-scoring games. Plus, I still say, let's see what Ben does with the 2022 recruiting class. That I don't think it's fully fair to judge him solely this upcoming year on wins and losses. Sure, we'll learn some about Ben's coaching chops this next season, but let's see what he does. And not just 22, because a lot of those kids, the relationships are already in place. Like you think about Trey Holloman, point guard at Cretin-Derham Hall. He's a top 50 player in the country in the class of 2022. Tom Izzo of Michigan State has been recruiting Holloman for 2 years. Ben Johnson has a lot of ground to make up in a short amount of time, with Trey likely committing somewhere sometime in the fall, late fall, early winter. That's hard for Ben to make up that sort of ground. So maybe it's actually fair to really judge him on the 23 recruiting class, but in some ways the 22 recruiting class. And I think he's going to land some of these local players, the Cam Heides of Wayzata, Damarian Watson of Totino Grace, Braden Carrington of Park Center. Those are all names to keep an eye on. But, Ben's working hard. They were booking some rental cars today, as they start to hit the road here.
Hey, make sure you fill that gas back up. Fill that gas back up.
Absolutely.
All right, careful.
I was tempted to remind him of that. He's
Newspaper
also, by the way,
pounce.
if anybody has a fencing guy, Ben needs a fence. He's got a big dog, and apparently the wait is like August. Like the earliest he can get a guy out to do a fence for him is August.
Fence
I know.
Yeah,
Ben Johnson, men's basketball coach, University of Minnesota.
It takes a while. Like, you got to put in the order for it, and then they got to come out and do it. It takes a while.
There's a material backup. A lot of people, I guess, are ordering fences right now. But anyway, he needs to wait until August. So, he understands he needs to wait his turn in line. But, hey, we all use relationships to our benefit. So
you're putting it out right now on the show, on the scoop.
I am. Well, he also put out a tweet, I guess, he told me. Just soliciting the public. I go, Ben, I don't know if I would have done that. I can only imagine some of the responses he got from his tweet.
But
he said he's looking for a fence guy. So if anybody watching or listening to this is a fence guy or woman, either tweet me or just call the University of Minnesota basketball office, ask for Ben.
Yeah. Okay,
say,
dude.
hey, you're willing to do Ben's fence.
Hey, dude, is Ben surprised that I believe right now as we speak there is one guy coming back? Like, I'm sure he expected guys to transfer and leave. That's not surprising. But, I mean, it's remarkable that I think it's one player is going to return from 2021, and that's it.
Yeah, well, and that's Isaiah Enan. Now, Booth Gotch is in the portal. He has not committed anywhere yet. There still is a slight chance that Booth ends up back here. But even if it's just two, and you're right, it's just the one right now, I think you need to go case by case. I'll just tell you frankly, Gabe Kauscher was out the door in January. That it didn't matter who got the job. That he had made the determination in January that he was transferring. And there's over 1,200 players in the portal, right? It's free agency in college basketball. Yeah, has there been a bit more turnover with the Gophers compared to other programs? There has been, but every program has multiple guys. Then you think about a guy like Martise Mitchell. He was a recruit Patino brought in from Chicago a year ago. Let's just be frank about it. Mitchell's not a Big Ten player. So why would you want to waste a scholarship on a player like that? So, you have an honest conversation about something like that. Sam Freeman, probably the same way, right? So, like, if you're Ben, you're not shedding a tear. You'll never say it publicly, but you're not shedding a tear that Martise Mitchell and Sam Freeman are leaving. Liam Robbins went with his uncle. I told you, I'm on record saying I would have hired his uncle, Ed Conroy, that I would have kept Ed Conroy on staff, that Ed wanted to be on staff. I can tell you that 100%. From my understanding, that Ed had interest in remaining at the University of Minnesota. Ben decided not to retain him on his staff. So then he ends up with Jerry Stackhouse at Vanderbilt. Liam Robbins follows his uncle out the door. Okay, that makes sense, right? Liam was always going to go with his uncle. Marcus Carr, he thinks he's an NBA player. He may play this thing out that, maybe he's not a draft pick, but maybe he feels like his people feel like he can land a two-way contract offer, kind of like Amir Coffey a couple years ago. Now, could Marcus maybe end up at Kentucky or somewhere else playing another year of college basketball? Maybe, but he's riding out this pre-draft process pretty hard, okay? So, he's in the portal, but does he even end up playing college basketball? So I just think you need to go guy by guy. We need to dissect each individual situation, but yeah, I think, Ben would tell you that, hey, these guys are more free than ever, that there's just so much turnover that, yeah, a little bit more here than elsewhere, but heck, he's not necessarily, crying or anything like that with some of the guys he's lost. There's also some dirty recruiting going on. I mean, I'll just tell you this isn't something that came up with Ben, but like too many people will tell you, CJ Frederick, remember him from Iowa? Good shooter. So he's playing for Fran McCaffrey at Iowa. He is now at Kentucky. So John Calipari lands him at Kentucky. Do you think the first time John Calipari, the Kentucky staff, reached out to Frederick was the day he entered the transfer portal? Give me a bleep and break. those wheels were in motion weeks before C.J. Frederick officially was in the transfer portal. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of roster filling going on. Like Iowa State won 2 games last year. They just had a player land at Kansas. They had another player land at Gonzaga. So Kansas and Gonzaga took a player off a 2-win roster from last year. That's more just about, roster filling. It's going to be hard year after year to keep the 9th man, the 10th man, the 11th man, the 12th man on your roster. Ben even said, this is something he did say, in all likelihood, he's never going to use all 13 scholarships. That's just too hard, because if you're the 12th scholarship guy or the 13th scholarship guy, you feel like you should be playing, and you can't play 12 or 13 guys. And so those guys are always going to look to transfer after a season. So it's the world we're in. I'm not saying I love it as a college basketball aficionado, but it's the world we're in right now.
Yeah. That's Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about your favorite local sports teams. We got to bounce. If you have some rapid-fire scoops, though, we would take them on the way out, Dukes.
Well, I'm trying to think. No lineup changes for the Wild tonight. I can tell you internally, I can tell you 2 players that just don't understand how Zach Parise, is not in the lineup. That he, with his playoff pedigree, all the points he scored in the playoffs, that you mean to tell me Zach couldn't help out on the occasional power play, help out, 5, 6, 7 minutes a game, just plopping there in front, maybe scoring a dirty goal, that there are some people wondering, how does Zach not crack the lineup? So that's one. I brought this up with Judd on Tuesday. John Anderson, 40 years as Gophers baseball coach, a Minnesota baseball legend. So his contract is up here in a few weeks. So the ball is now in Mark Coyle's court. That the Gophers, Coyle made Anderson an offer. He turned it down. The Anderson side went back to the U, and so now it's on the U to say yes or no. But that's an interesting situation to follow. Will John Anderson be back as Gophers baseball coach for a 41st season?
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone right now.
Yep, he is, this is cliche, but he is a great baseball man. Darren Doogie Wolfson, find his Scoop podcast, SKORNorth.com, the SKOR North app, Apple, Spotify, and we'll catch you next week, man.
Got it. One other thing, Phil. So I went down the rabbit hole of exploring 2022 baseball draft prospects. So I texted a scouting director of a team, not the Twins. I said, hey, what's the landscape of the 2022 Major League Baseball draft? Just predicting that the Twins will likely have, if not the number 1 pick next year, pick 2 or pick 3 or pick 4. They're going to be picking very, very high. I was told the name Elijah Green. Okay. Elijah Green. Go to YouTube or Google his name. That if tanking was a thing, this is this scouting director on background talking to me, that if tanking was a thing in Major League Baseball, that teams would be tanking for him. That he is the best draft prospect going back multiple years. Maybe even comparable to entering the draft many years ago. Bryce Harper was seen as the surefire thing. That this Elijah Green, 6'3", 220-pound outfielder, high school kid, he's viewed in the same light. Not to suggest that he's going to have the same career path as Bryce Harper, but just as a prospect, evaluating this kid right now when talking about the 2022 Major League Baseball draft, that this kid is off the chart. So my advice would be, if you're the Twins and you're going to stink, stink.
Keep stinking.
Yeah, stink to the point
Be
of
smelly.
You clinch the number 1 pick. Forget the number 2 pick or 3 pick. You need to have the number 1 pick in next year's draft.
I like it.
Reckless speculation.
Great stuff, Doogie. We'll talk next week.
Okay. Have a great birthday, Phil. See ya.
Thank you, man. All right, that's a Reckless Speculation Thursday. We gotta go. We gotta go.
I gotta go.
As Chip would
Bye-bye.
say. Or we gotta go. I gotta go, as Royce would say.
Are we doing this thing?
Are we doing this? What's your guess?
Action movie rewind tomorrow. Predator. Get to the chopper. So check that out. Thanks for hanging out with us today on Reckless Speculation Thursday. See you guys.